What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. It's a beautiful day in the garden today. I think it's like 70 degrees, which is just incredible. It's only early April, and so I'm just enjoying this beautiful weather while it's here because I know with it being Michigan that tomorrow it could snow. I'm completely aware of that, and I've just kind of become used to it. So I'm not necessarily going to be bummed when that happens, and I also won't be surprised when it happens, but you know, I'll at least pull out the shorts when I can. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about planting stuff in the garden right now, stuff that you can be planting in the garden right now, well before your last frost date. Now, if you don't know when your last frost date is, a very good resource is the Farmer's Almanac. Now, they have a website. I don't necessarily know what their website URL is, but you can just go onto Google and just type in the Farmer's Almanac last frost date, and a page should pop up where you put in your zip code. And that zip code is going to correspond to the nearest city, or a largest city near you. For us, it'd be like Detroit. And so it's not right next door, unless of course you lived in Detroit, then that'd be very applicable. But for us, it's kind of the nearest big city, and that's going to give you the last frost date for that area. And that's going to be a really good guide on when you can be planting most of your crops outside. But our last frost date is not until May. And it's obviously April. And so what does that mean? That means that we might not have a frost, but I've been living here long enough to know that, yeah, we're gonna get a frost. I mean, heck, the trees haven't even broken bud yet. Nothing is even beginning to turn into spring yet, even though it's 70 degrees. Sure, you're definitely getting some signs of spring. The birds are out. There's definitely stuff popping up. The dandelions are already beginning to flower, but most of the garden and most of the world is still kind of in winter mode. It's still kind of in dormancy mode. And that's because a lot of these plants know that there's a really good potential for frost. And so they've kind of become acclimated to that weather and that time when it might be warm, but they know that it's not quite warm enough to really trust it. And so we call that a false spring. And so there's a lot of plants that you can plant before that time, before your last frost date, and you actually should be doing that because it's not only going to extend your harvest, it's not only going to increase the amount that you're growing, but it's also in many cases going to give you a better harvest for these crops. A lot of these cool weather crops and cold weather crops don't like to be planted when it's warm. All right, so the first crop are things like lettuce. I love growing lettuce because it goes to seed very quickly, and there are more kind of heat tolerant varieties. There's a variety called Slow Bolt that's fantastic. Black seeded Simpson is another variety, but for the most part, lettuce is lettuce and it doesn't like hot weather. And so I love growing lettuce before our last frost date. I'll get it in the ground right now. In fact, I just planted some lettuce in the last episode, and it's gonna be great to start harvesting that really soon. In the next couple weeks, it's already gonna be growing up, and then in about 4 or 5 weeks, we're gonna be harvesting. So that's exciting. Another crop, radishes. As I already mentioned, radishes do not like hot weather. They don't like hot weather at all, and they'll go to seed very quickly on you, so get them planted right now. Some more radishes. Some more radishes. I'm actually planting these in the garden right after this video, so that's why I have so many. Kale. Kale is a fantastic variety of cold weather crop because it handles some super cold weather. In fact, in a lot of cases, we can actually get kale to overwinter without any protection at all. That's how cold it is, or that's how cold hardy it is. It just loves cold weather. And so kale's another great one. Now, one that I don't have here that I'm gonna be starting inside to start from a little seedling, just because it does better as a seedling than it does planted directly in the ground, is cabbage. Now, you can start cabbage directly in the ground if you want. I just find it's better to plant it out as a seedling. Cabbage does great in cold weather. Any of your brassicas, kale, cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli. Where are you at, broccoli? Broccoli. Broccoli does great. Any of those crops. Things like Brussels sprouts, another brassica, does awesome. So those all do very good in cold weather. Things like endive, absolutely love endive. Another leafy green, does great in cold weather. In fact, it actually is sweeter and crisper in cold weather. If you get it, if it gets nice and warm, a lot of times endive gets bitter, and bitter is not good, at least in my opinion. I don't like to eat a bitter salad. So things like kohlrabi. Kohlrabi is another brassica. That's in the same kind of family as cabbage and broccoli and whatnot. So those are gonna do great. There's some more kohlrabi. Got some green and some purple there. Beets. Beets do great. Beets do great before your last frost. Get them in the ground, because what can happen is beets can actually tolerate some warmer weather. They don't necessarily go to seed and they don't have any issues in warm weather, but what's really nice is they can handle the colder weather. And so what we'll do is we'll plant an early spring harvest. Then when those are done, we'll pull them out, we'll plant a summer harvest. Then when those are done, we'll pull them out and we'll plant a fall harvest. 3 harvests of beets from one growing season. It's absolutely incredible, and we can really maximize how much we grow by planting them early. Another one that can handle it is, well, more beets. Cauliflower. Cauliflower is in the brassica family, so that's very much the same. It loves it. Now, onions. Onions is another variety. Get them in the ground. You can plant onions from seed. We're going to be planting our seeds very soon here. We're actually a little bit late with planting onion seeds, but you can also plant them in the ground. We might even plant some in the ground. If you have things like bunching onions, if you have things like even shallots or regular onions like this, get them in the ground. They love it. Chives, more like an herb, but they're in the onion family. They're gonna love it. Leeks. Leeks are in the onion family, the allium family. They're gonna love it. Throw those in the ground if you can't start them inside or you don't want to. Get them in the ground. They're gonna love it, and it's gonna give them a nice long time to mature. So we got onions, more onions. Not cucamelons. I don't know. That you don't want to plant that one. That's a warm weather crop. Things like spinach. Get your spinach in the ground, especially plants like spinach, because the season for spinach is so short that you're gonna find you plant it, it's gonna go to seed pretty much before you can blink. Now, those are all the seeds that I have necessarily out here with me, but I also wanna plant things like cilantro. I wanna plant things like dill. I also wanna plant things like parsley. Those are all really nice cold hardy crops. Some of your herbs like sage, thyme, not as much rosemary. Don't plant your rosemary just yet. Rosemary is more of a warm weather herb, at least in our area. And so you don't want to plant things like rosemary. But most of your Mediterranean herbs, even things like oregano, so oregano, sage, thyme, things like that are going to do fantastic in cold weather before your last frost date. And then one last one that I'll give you is carrots and parsnips. I absolutely love planting carrots and parsnips right now because they like cool, damp soil. They do very well in cool, damp soil, and it's actually going to help the germination rate. So what you want to do is get those in the ground as well. Those can all handle cool and cold weather well before your last frost date. And so, as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow big or go home. Like this video if you did enjoy. Make sure to subscribe. And as always, we'll catch you all on the next episode. All right, grow big or go home, everyone. Bye.